All right, everybody. It is good to have you here. It is Wednesday, so let's talk about all the sports betting and DFS goodness your beefy cold heart desires. That's what we do here on The Sweat. She's TV's Jessie Coffield. I am just Emerson Lotzia.
We know. Week 7 of the NFL season officially gets underway tomorrow, so let's take this time to see if our panel is taking the over.
There it is.
Yeah, we know.
Sorry.
Obviously, you just need attention 24/7. So there's Emerson's. Everyone look at Emerson's shirt.
Thank you.
Emerson has a fun shirt on.
Yeah, fun.
Wow.
That's just my personality.
So fun. Okay, so good morning to DraftKings contributors. We have Pierce Dietrich, Reed Fowler, and Jeff Ulrich.
Yes, we do. We'll start with the chunkiest total on the slate here, guys. Chiefs at the Titans, 57.5. Over or under, Jeff Ulrich?
I have something fun, too. One of my kids drew me a picture, so that's pretty fun.
Wow. Now we know where Jeff
Wait a
gets
minute.
his art skills
Was
from.
one of those a dog on that picture? Was that Pepper?
There's a dog, there's a unicorn/cat
Oh,
mix. I don't
Interesting.
know.
that's gorgeous.
Okay, so back to this total here. It's the biggest one on the slate. Chiefs at the Titans, 57.
I mean, I really don't need to do much analysis. You know what's happening here. We're going over. Did you not see the Tennessee-Buffalo game that I said would go over, and it went
Yeah.
over by about 1 million points? Oh, 56? This is what you do on the DraftKings Sportsbook because you're not a wimp, like probably Pierce and Reed will be. You go in to the alternate lines, you hit 59.5 up, and you get the plus odds, and then you go over. Tennessee plays at a really fast pace. They don't have a secondary. Yeah, this one's going over for sure.
Ooh, okay. Talk to me here, Reed T. Fowler.
Oh, you mean a little bit of
Oh,
that?
yeah! I love the props. I
Oh,
love
that-
the props today.
Well, we'll save that. We'll save that for the show at 5 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to say under because I want to really peeve off Jeff here because he's the over king. But look, Tennessee is 4th in offensive plays per game at 69.5. Kansas City is 7th at right under that at 67. These guys both play at a fast pace. Both teams are 4-2 hitting the over, and both don't have defenses. There's really nothing else to say, like Jeff mentioned.
Yeah, Pierce, Kansas City has combined with its opponents to score more than 57.5 points in 5 of 7 games this season.
Yeah, I'll go with our highness, the over king on this one. I don't see how you could play the under and feel comfortable at all. With both these defenses being terrible, the Chiefs are bad at everything, even in pass rush. So, I mean, I can't. Like the Titans, one of their weaknesses, their offensive line's terrible. I mean, Derrick Henry still puts up tons of yards, but they don't pass block very well, and they're putting a lot of pressure on Tannehill. But hey, guess what? The Chiefs don't do anything right, especially pass rush. So Tannehill's probably gonna have a good game. AJ Brown's gonna have a pretty good game. Everybody checks out in this game. Just play the over. What are we talking about?
Okay.
All right, the football team is on the road in Green Bay where the total sits at 48.5. So which way you leaning on this one, Reed?
Yeah, I'll go under in this one. The Washington football team is 4-2 hitting the over. Green Bay is the exact opposite at 2-4. And I think this really matters on game script and how it's going to go, right? Like everyone on the offensive side for Washington is injured, right? We got a shin injury for Antonio Gibson. McLaurin is dealing with a hamstring. He looked fine. Curtis Samuel, the guy that they signed in the offseason, hasn't really done anything at all. And even their 3rd and 4th string receivers are a little bit banged up. And this defense, the Washington football team, they play the most dime packages on defense. So if we're going to see that that defense, what we saw other teams play against Aaron Rodgers, you're going to see a lot of Aaron Jones, you're going to see a lot of AJ Dillon. And what we've seen from the Packers is that when they get up in the second half, they just give the ball to AJ Dillon and they run out the clock. So I'm going to say under here.
All right, Pierce, do you want to take the under too?
No, I'm going to go with the over here. Green Bay should have no problem cutting apart this Washington defense that's struggling here. Now, they've had a decent run defense in Washington, but that's just because people are passing all over them. They're still giving up 4 yards per carry. And as Reed mentioned, Jones and A.J. Dillon are having good seasons so far. So I don't have any problems here with the Green Bay offense, even though their offensive line's not playing well, but it seems to have not hindered them whatsoever. The question is, can Washington score? It feels like last week, Washington's got a good matchup, and they should be able to score, but they didn't score last week. This is kind of Taylor Heineke's final chance. If he doesn't get it together, Ryan Fitzpatrick will be back soon. And there's also the issue of they're really not letting him run the ball. They're not letting him show off all of his talent. He's kind of handcuffed. There is concern that Washington won't put up enough points again, but I'll give him one more chance, and I think we'll go over.
All right, Jeff, we got one for the over, one for the under. Where are you going?
I mean, look, my court jester Pierce made some great points there. I think he's finally listening to some things that I'm putting out. Yeah, I think Devontae Adams might hit the over in this game by himself. The Washington secondary, not good. And yes, Green Bay does play at a slow pace, but man, like Green Bay is probably going to be scoring very, very quickly in this game. And then you've got Washington, which is a top 5 pace of play team in the NFL. Just look at what Washington has done against some of the elite quarterbacks. I mean, 31 points to the Chiefs, 33 points to the Saints, and they allowed Atlanta to score 30 points. Like I said, Green Bay might approach 40 points in this game by themselves. With this one under 50, yeah, I do want to take the over in all seriousness.
Let's go Bengals here at the Ravens, guys. We are going wicked low. 47. It's not the lowest on the DK Sportsbook. Pierce, over or under?
I'll go over in this one as well. And it sounds strange, but a lot of this comes down to Cincinnati's defense. How often do we say that? If Cincinnati's defense shows up, then it could go under. But I like both these offenses. Lamar Jackson just gets it done. It's not pretty all the time, but he just finds a way to move the chains and score. He might not score on every possession, but he'll score on enough possessions. And Joe Burrow has looked pretty good so far. His tougher games have been against some really tough pass rushes. Baltimore doesn't have a really strong pass rush. He's getting good protection. And really, these two teams, very similar to each other. They're not very consistent yet, but they're both very explosive. You got Jamar Chase hitting the big plays. Joe Mixon looks good. Joe Burrow looks good. Lamar Jackson extending downs. I think they're going to get over this.
Okay, Jeff, another over?
No, this one I kind of want to stay away from, or even just bet the under here. I mean, I think 47. I was expecting this one to project more around 45, 46, and I think that they're giving Lamar Jackson some respect, which is fine. But the way you attack Cincinnati is kind of on the outside, and Baltimore's outside receivers can be really hit or miss. Cincinnati plays at the slowest pace in the league. If they can hold up on the outside, I think this game gets slow, it gets sloppy, and Zach Taylor is not someone who we know is going to push the pace. He's going to do everything he can right now just to limit pass attempts and make this a close game. Divisional battle. It's not like my favorite under to hit in the week, but it is one that at 47, I would lean under here.
Okay, which way would you lean, Reed?
Yeah, I'm with the over king as well in the under. And look, Joe Burrow's looked great. He's looked great, especially against pressure. He's got a lot of good stats correlated to when he's under pressure and who pressures the most. One of the highest rates is Baltimore. The issue is, right, and this is why they went Jamar Chase over a guy like Penny Sewell in the draft, is that this offensive line is still susceptible to allowing pressure on their quarterback. And we've seen now that a third of his dropbacks under pressure end in sacks. And so I think that's going to be tough. We just saw the Ravens pull the Chargers to 6 points. And I think we can all agree here on a panel, which is more than one, according to Emerson, that the Chargers offense is a little bit better than Cincinnati. So I'm going to say under.
All right, guys, an injury is going to cost Baker Mayfield a start for the first time in his career.
Crazy, dude.
Okay, Cleveland Browns announced that Case Keenum is going to start Thursday versus the Broncos. Baker obviously battling that torn labrum. So, Jeff, what's your take on this? Anybody benefiting from this?
Ooh.
Yeah, Ernest Johnson is benefiting from it. He's probably going to see 1 million carries because the Browns are going to want to limit how many times they throw the ball. So, Cleveland was projecting already as one of the lowest pass attempts in the league. They're facing the Broncos here. I think you're going to see a lot of Ernest Johnson. I think you're going to see a lot of short passes. And if there's other gadget players like that kicking around, I mean, the guy who it hurts is like the deep shot plays like Donovan Peoples-Jones. I mean, this is just a game to stay away from there. But I do honestly think that Ernest Johnson is in a pretty good spot here. He's probably going to see a lot of work in the pass game too.
Yeah, my co-host Emerson pointing out to me that this was the lowest total on the board at 41.5, but it has been taken off the board for now.
So much.
Reed, what's your take on this situation?
Where are you looking, Emerson?
I was looking at myself on the large jumbotron
that makes
over
sense.
here.
Obviously.
That makes sense.
Wow.
Jesse, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Is it that far of a drop off, honestly, with how Baker was playing this year? I don't really think so, right? We've seen Case Keenum play well, right, in spots with the Vikings. We've seen him play well, and he's a journeyman. And we know that in these spot starts, we've seen these backup quarterbacks like a Davis Mills, right, like a Taylor Heineke. When he first got that start for Ryan Fitzpatrick, perform above expectation. So I don't really think there's a drop. And to Jeff's point, 46% run play to 54% pass. Dearness Johnson, Demetric Felton, who's only, I think, gotten 2 snaps out of the backfield so far this season. He might get worked around. He's that gadget guy that they're probably going to be using. But yeah, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was becoming that wide receiver 1 on this team and not OBJ, is probably going to hurt him a little bit more and probably bump up the tight ends like David Njoku and Austin Hooper.
Pierce, you feeling in a revenge game here?
Yeah.
Former Broncos quarterback Case Keenum.
I guess that is right. I didn't even think
Yeah.
there. But you know what? It's a backup quarterback. He's a backup quarterback for a reason. I'm just going to use common sense and play the Denver defense and correlate that with a Denver running back, whichever one you want to choose. That's a pretty good argument by Reed, but it's not going to happen.
Oh, man. Can't wait to talk more about this with Reed and Jeff tonight. We're also going to talk some golf. It's the highest rated weekly edition of the slate.
Oh, it's the highest rated.
Yes.
I did know that.
Yes, it is. I have numbers to back that up. Nielsen ratings. 5 o'clock, everybody, on YouTube and Twitch, and also on the DraftKings Twitter pages.
Where there are Nielsen ratings.
Indeed. Here's a sports book. Meanwhile, here's a sports book look at the Zozo Championship. It tees off tonight, everybody,
In
7:30,
Japan.
because it is in Japan.
Jason, of course, Zozo Championship is on all of our minds right now. Hideki Matsuyama, who of course was a runner-up a couple years ago, is back in his native Japan. He is, a guy who I think a lot of people are looking at as potential to win this event. Patrick Cantlay took it last year, but again, that event was in California, not Japan, where Tiger Woods won the inaugural event a couple of years ago. So how do you feel about Hideki's chances this week?
Yeah, 2 years is a long time, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't feel like that long ago in some respects that Tiger Woods won the inaugural edition of the Zozo Championship in Japan for his 82nd PGA Tour title, but in some ways it feels like 2 decades ago. In any case, we get to Hideki, who was runner-up that year at this very golf course to Tiger Woods, lost by 3 shots that year. And I go back to a quote that I got from Hideki, about Hideki from a Japanese journalist who has covered him for a long time when I was writing a piece on him years ago. And she told me he doesn't speak much English, but he doesn't speak that much Japanese either. And the idea behind that is that he's a very shy, quiet guy. And earlier in his career, there was an idea that Hideki might not play his best golf in his homeland because there's so much attention, so many eyeballs, so many cameras flashing all around him, and that he didn't really like all of that attention. Well, over the last few years, he's played 3 events in Japan, including the Olympics. He's finished 2nd, 4th, and 8th. So I think he's kind of gotten over any sort of shyness around being in front of these big crowds and big media contingents. And so I expect it to be a very good week for Hideki. It's a top-heavy field. He can look at this field and say, look, other than maybe 2 other players, and I'm sure we're going to talk about them, I am probably the best player here, and I've got a good chance to win an event that probably means more to him than it means to some other players in this field.
Hideki Matsuyama with the 4th best odds to win this event. Again, as Jason mentioned, a runner-up a couple of years ago, but now the favorite here with plus 600 odds on the DraftKings Sportsbook is Xander Schauffele. How do you like his chances?
Very interesting, the fact that Xander was enlisted as the favorite over Colin Morikawa, and I get it. There are some very good reasons. There are some narratives here. Xander loves playing these shortened events, these limited field events with no cut. He's had a very strong history at these tournaments. He's, of course, coming off a win the last time he was in Japan, got the gold medal at the Olympics a few months ago. And he also tends to play well on shorter golf courses. This course is just over 7,000 yards long, granted a par 70, but he does tend to tear up shorter golf courses. Again, I like Xander. It's hard not to like Xander in an event where you look at it and say, he might only be challenged by a couple of the really top players in this field. So if he goes out there and has his best stuff, he doesn't have to beat a whole lot of other guys of similar skill level. So again, I can't really give you a fade from the top of the board because these guys, quite frankly, don't have a whole lot of competition from some elite peers this week like they usually do.
Now, Jason, whether it's someone who's just not golfing particularly well, so the form, the status concerns you a little bit, or just the odds are a little bit too long, who are you completely fading this week?
It was a really rough 2-week stretch in Vegas for Siwoo Kim. Either that or it was a fantastic 2-week stretch in Vegas for Siwoo Kim. And he just didn't play very good golf. Either way, The results were not there. He's 35-1 this week. I am going to fade Siwoo. It looked like he was starting to play well at the beginning of the season. He's a very volatile player. And so if someone's going to turn things around in a hurry, it can certainly be Siwoo. But I'm going to stay away based on what we saw from his results over the last couple of weeks in Vegas. He missed the cut at the Shriners and was second to last at the CJ Cup. So that's a no-go for me.
We always save the most important question for last, the one that people care the most about, and that is who is going to win the Zozo Championship.
All right, so this is an interesting question, a little bit of a loaded question, more so this week than other weeks. I think that I usually like to give you, hey, here's the guy that I like to win. Take him at these odds. You're going to do well. If everybody in the field had the same odds, which, hey, let's try that one day. I would take Colin Morikawa in this field. I think he's just outclassing the rivals. He's this should be a good course for the world's preeminent ball striker, quite frankly, the best iron player in the game right now. This should be right up his alley, coming off a runner-up finish where he shot 62 on Sunday in Las Vegas. That said, Colin Morikawa is right around plus 650, plus 700 as we speak right now. And so I just don't want to chase a guy that's got that short of a number. So I'm looking at another player who plays really well on short golf courses, CT Pan. He won the bronze medal in Japan just a few months ago during the Olympics. He's finished 6th and 11th place in his first 2 starts of this young PGA Tour season already. I like the number that he's got. I like the fact that he's coming in under the radar a little bit. He really is an underrated type of player because I think he's a lot better than people realize, especially on the right golf course. And this could and maybe should be the right golf course for CT Pan.
See, I would say Jason Sobel is better than people realize, but I think everybody knows how good this guy is. Jason, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Adam.
Welcome back to The Sweat. Time to talk baseball with our MLB panel. DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne and Matt Meiselman. Fellas, the Sox took the L last night. The Dodgers got in the win column. Now let's talk about tonight.
Last night was wild. Like,
I fell asleep very early.
Oh my God, I fell asleep early too. And I wake up, it's still on. You're like, what the hell happened in the ninth inning between the Red Sox?
Yeah.
Right?
7 runs.
And the Astros, yeah, for sure. I mean, hell, you could say the same thing if you fall asleep really early, late in that Braves-Dodgers game as well. You thought the Braves had it. Dodgers not so fast. Okay, Garion, what's your favorite DFS play in Game 5 today between Houston and Boston?
Yeah, I think when you look at the classic slate, while there's definitely positional value on both sides, this is probably going to be another high-scoring game between these two teams. I think the Astros are pretty underpriced across the board. I mean, you can get someone like Alex Bregman in your lineup for $4,300. And this is someone who, for his career, has a 981 OPS and a 163 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. However, I think the one guy that really stands out to me on the Astros side of things is Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker not only led the Astros in expected WOBA against left-handed pitching this season at 415 as a left-handed batter, but he's also incredible against right-handed pitching. He had a 900 OPS against both right-handed pitchers and left-handed pitchers during the regular season. And I think that's really important because I don't think Chris Sale is going to last very long in this game, even if Chris Sale is pitching well. So you're probably going to see Kyle Tucker have to go up against an assortment of guys out of that Boston bullpen. And he's really someone who does not have a weak split. I think his value is so much higher now that he's been penciled into the 6th spot as opposed to the 7th spot. I think Kyle Tucker is probably the best play on this slate.
Okay. What do you think here, Matty?
So I agree with Darian on the pricing dynamics. The Astros are underpriced, but I also think Chris Sale is underpriced. And I think that sentiment that Darian just laid out about Chris Sale and how he won't be in the game for very long, I think that is what most people are going to think. And the reason Sale's been getting taken out of games early, and granted, it's just 2 starts, right? Like, this is only 2 playoff appearances. He hasn't gone deep in games because he just hasn't pitched well. He gave up 5 runs in an inning to the Rays, and he was struggling through Game 1 against the Astros. If he's good, I think he stays in. It's not like the Red Sox have bullpen depth. They just used Nathan Eovaldi out of the bullpen in last night's game. So I think if Sale looks good, they'll let him go. And it could actually be a leverage play because I do think a lot of people will play the Dodgers tonight, but the Astros could be the most popular stack just because they're really cheap. It's easy to fit them in. So I think Sale actually is a leverage play as much as you can get for a 2-game slate because it is a little hard to find those kinds of opportunities sometimes. But I think Sale could be this slate's best pitcher, and he probably won't be drafted like one.
All right, sportsbook time. Matt, how about your favorite bet from this one?
I have less of an opinion on the betting lines here. Like, I really think the lines are fair. And I actually had planned to, before we came on, say like the under actually seemed kind of appealing to me. Under 9.5 was at minus 105. And in the last 10 minutes, it's actually flipped where the under is down to minus 115. So I don't know if I like it as much there. It was only really just a lean anyway. But I do think the market has kind of just assessed these teams properly. The Red Sox are rightfully favored in this game just by a little bit. The total is 9.5. I think maybe it should be 9, but this is pretty much spot on.
Gary, and favorite bet in the Sox-Astros game?
I mean, while I agree with Matt that Chris Sale definitely is probably in a vacuum the most talented pitcher on this slate and that he will be a variance play because people probably don't want to play him, one bet I really want to back is Chris Sale under 14.5 outs recorded. I don't think this is really a matter of how well Sale pitches. I think he could, possibly throw 3 or 4 scoreless innings in this game and still not see the 5th inning just because of the way he's been utilized so far this season. Again, this is someone coming off Tommy John surgery. The last time Chris Sale threw 90 pitches in a game was September 1st. He has not thrown 100 pitches in a game since 2019. I just don't think there's all that much volume you can pencil in for someone like Sale, especially considering not only are the Astros the best statistical offense against left-handed pitching in all of baseball, they also just take a lot of pitches. They have the 3rd lowest swing rate in the entirety of baseball. I think they're going to work counts, and I just don't see Sale working all that deep. Again, even if he's successful, because I think you could make the case he wasn't actually that bad in game 1 of this series. He just got to a point where Alex Cora decided, I don't want to see Chris Sale throw any more pitches. And whether that's a health concern, whether that's just not being able to trust him the 3rd time through an order, I don't know. But I just don't envision Sale pitching past the 5th inning in this game.
Gary, let's go over to the NLCS now. What's your favorite DFS play in this Braves and Dodgers contest? We saw Bellinger and Betts combining to drive in, 4 runs in a potentially season-saving 8th inning in Game 3?
Yeah, it was impressive stuff. And I think there is some value to be had here with the left-handed bats in the lower half of the Dodgers order. But if you ask me if I can just have one bat or one player in this game, it's chalky, but it has to be Corey Seager. Seager's been on absolute fire right now. He's got a home run in each of his last 2 games. And if Yanoa does end up starting this game, and I'm pretty sure he's going to, they haven't officially announced it yet, but left-handed bats were his big issue to close the season. His last 7 starts, a .606 slugging percentage to opposing left-handed hitters. Seager is the left-handed hitter in the top half of the Dodgers order, and he's just been nightmare fuel for the Braves in the playoffs. He has 7 home runs in the 10 playoff games he's played against the Atlanta Braves. It's pretty impressive stuff. So yeah, I accept that it's chalky. I understand that, but the matchup here is just too good to pass up.
Matt, what direction are you going in here for your favorite DFS play? Up.
There we go.
There we
go. We had a mute. I don't think Seager will be as chalky as Garion thinks, actually, because you have Xander Bogaerts and Carlos Correa in the other game. So all of those guys, I think, will, it'll just get spread out amongst them. I like all of those choices. For this game specifically, I think Freddie Freeman actually goes pretty overlooked because, number one, you have Cody Bellinger for so much cheaper. And the Dodgers have some expensive hitters. If you want to play them, you need the cheaper guys. Bellinger's only $3,300. So, to me, that is the value play on this slate. And I think people will just play him at first base because there aren't a lot of first basemen to choose from. There's a lot more outfielders, so it's easier to just slot Bellinger in the first base slot. And I also think most people are playing Julio Urias in what probably looks like the safest spot for anyone. But Urias appeared as a reliever a few days ago. It's definitely a trend across the playoffs that starting pitchers are not really going deep in games. So I don't think anyone's safe. For me to pick Sale, it's mostly a contrarian thing. There's upside, but of course, he could go 2 innings if he's not pitching well. I think the same is true for Julio Urias if he's not doing well either. So Freeman gets you some leverage there. And I also just think the way the positional pricing breaks down, Bellinger will be a more popular choice. Yuli Gurriel will be a more popular choice. And Freeman's up there at 4,500. Just doesn't seem very appealing, I think, to most people. But he's Freddie Freeman. He's one of the best hitters in baseball. It's a 2-game slate. And if he's less than 20% owned or something, I think that's really appealing.
All right, Matt, your favorite bet from this Braves-Dodgers game is?
So, yeah, I didn't like much from that first game betting-wise. But for this game, I really do like the over. I think that Urias is probably not going to give the Dodgers that much length. And I think Huascar Ynoa is not as good of a pitcher as people think he is. Like, he's a guy who can get some strikeouts, but the Dodgers have such a good offense. And even without Max Muncy, I think they will put up some runs. I think the Braves should be able to put up some runs. Like, this is a game between two good offenses in a decent hitter's park. And the pitching matchup, I think, is mediocre, maybe slightly above average. The total's only 8 runs. That's really what this comes down to. And I think that in reality, the two games today should have very similar totals, and the Braves and Dodgers one is just kind of deflated for whatever reason.
All right, Gary, where are you going with this?
Yeah, I would echo what Matt was saying from a DFS capacity about Urias. I think that he's going to be incredibly chalky because he has the highest floor, but, what is a high floor on a 2-game playoff slate, especially in 2021? However, when we take out ownership, I think that I do like the prop Urias to get a win in this game at plus 180. It seems like there's a lot of value there considering what the Dodgers will be on the money line when the actual pitching matchup is shown tonight. He only has to throw 5 innings, and I do think the Dodgers are going to be able to score off Ynoa, who is, without question, the worst pitcher pitching today. So there's going to be early run support. Hopefully there's enough of a cushion where the Dodgers and Dave Roberts feel like they don't have to pull an early trigger with someone like Urias, who, again, I don't think he's the best pitcher in baseball by any means, but statistically he was one of the best pitchers in the second half of the season. He's very, very good. It, again, just comes down to strange bullpen management so far in the playoffs. But with a bit of the burden removed of being down 3-0 as opposed to only being down 2-1, I don't think the Dodgers have to be super, super quick to pull him out of a game at the first sign of trouble. So I do think he throws 5 innings, and I think by that point, the Dodgers have a pretty comfortable lead.
All right, dudes, that's it. Appreciate the help. Big day of baseball ahead. But, Matt, need you to hang out. We need you and Kenny to help us with NBA building blocks right after this break. All right, it was absolutely fantastic to see the NBA returning last night. It was just a 2-game slate. You had the Warriors knocking off LeBron and the Lakers. You had the defending champ Bucks taking down a Kyrie-less Brooklyn Nets. But tonight, guys, we get to satisfy our entire craving for a lot of basketball. We have 11.
11 games.
1-1. That's 11.
slate.
Kenny Ducey, Matt Musselman, thanks for helping us out here with NBA building blocks.
Yeah, getting your favorite DFS plays at the following positions. Like I said, 11-game NBA slate. So let's start at center. Kenny, who's your guy?
Oh, no.
You are muted.
No, you're muted. Oh, gosh, I'm panicking. Okay, he says go, Matt.
Okay,
you
Matt,
gotta go.
go ahead.
Don't panic.
We'll talk in a second.
No!
Okay, Matt, go
Matt,
ahead.
go ahead.
All right, I will go. So this is going to be an interesting slate because one, we don't know a lot yet. There's a lot of injury situations that will probably change some things later on. But the guy who seems like the value play, and he's a power forward and a center, is Jaron Jackson Jr. The Grizzlies don't have Jonas Valanciunas around anymore. They have Steven Adams at center, who doesn't do as much offensively, probably doesn't play as many minutes as Valanciunas was playing, but it's more about the usage. So there's just going to be more scoring to go around. And then Dylan Brooks is also out for this game. So as far as value plays, I think Jackson is one of the best for this slate.
All right, really quick, Matt, before we go to Kenny, now that basketball, now that NBA is back, explain to the people really quick, kind of like what you were saying, there's a lot of injury news that's going to come out. Like, this is something where you need to really stay on top of your lineups until like a minute before these games lock, right?
Oh, yes, that is certainly true. And then even after the games lock. So up to each game, we may see information change. For example, Jalen Brown, we don't know if he's going to play tonight. There's a COVID situation going on with him. So if he doesn't play, obviously you don't want to play Jalen Brown if he's not playing. But if he doesn't, NBA is a little bit different than some other sports where there are massive opportunity increases for players on the same team. So like if Peyton Pritchard starts because Jalen Brown is out, then that's way more minutes for him. And it's worth knowing that someone like that enters the starting lineup. But NBA news isn't like baseball where the starting lineups all kind of come out at the same time. NBA news is just whenever. So whenever the teams decide to tell us that there's a certain player in or out, that's going to have a big impact. So, yeah, honestly, NBA is a little bit exhausting, but it's a lot of fun.
Yes, got to stay on top of that stuff.
Perfect time to remind everyone, too, if you follow DK Live on Twitter, it is one of my favorite follows. Seriously, the personality coming through that account on Twitter is epic, but also up-to-date updates with injury news around the association. Really, every league.
All right, let's now see if Kenny is here to give his play at center.
Kenny?
Yeah, well, look, this is true that you have to look at the injuries when you're looking at this slate. I think Matt hit the nail on the head. And while the Raptors could just go with Chris Boucher, if they don't, I think that Precious Achiuwa is in a really, really good spot here, guys. $3,100, and whoever plays against the Washington Wizards, I think it's going to be in for a big night. When you look at their interior defense from a year ago, they got absolutely shredded. And last postseason, especially, against the Sixers, I know everyone sort of gets demolished by Joel Embiid, right? But their rebounding was really suspect. And Daniel Gafford was like the best center for them, giving them pretty good minutes. But, look at power forward here for the Raptors. If Achiuwa does play big minutes, and he could play 23, 25 minutes if there's no Boucher, he would get Kyle Kuzma's defense. And I think that's a pretty good matchup here for any sort of big man. So I think that this is a pretty good spot, as good a spot as any, to play Precious Achiuwa if on his new team, if there is an injury there, is there an opening for playing time for him.
All right, cool. Let's go to favorite play at forward. Young Kenneth, take us away.
Yeah, look, this is a slate where I really just like firing up a lot of young players. And Franz Wagner at $3,000. I mean, I think this is going to be a slate to find, and at least a first, couple of weeks to find by what rookies can you find that are going to get big minutes, that are going to score, right? Find the spacing in the NBA a little more friendlier than the spacing in college. And I think that Franz Wagner is a guy, in Orlando who certainly could do that. They have a lot of talent on that roster. He can shoot the basketball. And I think this matchup here, with the Spurs, a team that was sort of middling in the defensive rankings last year, is a decent one. And again, it all comes down to the minutes here for Franz Wagner. And, he could easily see projection for 26 minutes. I think it's a pretty good spot to play a minimum salary guy. And again, that's just sort of going to be a theme tonight. Who can you find at $4,000 or cheaper that's going to play 25 to 30 minutes? And then, that helps you complement with a few of the big stars that might get more usage, like a Joel Embiid.
All right, Matty, who's your guy at forward?
So to Kenny's point, there are a lot of cheap players tonight that are in pretty appealing positions. Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley, there's a lot, and a lot of them are rookies too that don't cost that much. I'll kind of play both sides of this because I mentioned Jaron Jackson at center. And if you want to take the other stand and you say like Jackson is too popular and maybe you wanted some leverage with someone else on his team, Brandon Clark is someone else I like. So you don't want to play these guys in the same lineup. They're going to kind of take away minutes from each other. But Clark is really cheap too. And I don't think that he's going to get much attention because I think on opening night tonight, or at least the first main slate, you're going to see a lot of people gravitate towards this year's draft class because there's just so many intriguing names there. And the players from the last couple of draft classes are good too. Like Clark is a really good player. And for the same reasons that Jaron Jackson is a good play, I think Clark is also a good play. So as a discounted option, he probably winds up being pretty contrarian tonight.
All right, let's move on, fellas, to your favorite play at guard. Matt, who are you going to go with?
Yeah, guard is interesting. So with Ben Simmons out, we have Tyrese Maxey at $4,000. We also have guys like Chris Duarte, Jalen Green, who are underpriced. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Fred VanVleet are underpriced. So you really can't go wrong here. Like there's so many good guard choices. But if you do want to play the GPP strategy of just trying to pay up at a position where people aren't going to do it because there's so many values here, I don't think anyone's playing Donovan Mitchell tonight at 9,600. I think if you're going to play an expensive guard, you're probably going all the way up to Damian Lillard at 10,100. Mitchell is just kind of priced in there where like he's not on the level of someone like Lillard from a fantasy perspective, but he certainly has the upside. I mean, we've seen it from him many, many times. And he's in a good matchup too. They're going against the Thunder. So I think Mitchell goes overlooked because you're either paying up for Lillard or paying down for a lot of these cheap guys, and he's just kind of right in the middle there.
All right, Kenny, your favorite play at guard in DFS?
Yeah, I mean, Zach LaVine's the guy too. I kind of like that could get overlooked. I think that's a decent strategy. I am gonna take the bait with the two of the names that you mentioned. I do like Tyrese Maxey quite a bit at $4,000. I know he's going to be pretty chalky. He might be 20% owned here, but you're talking about a guy that could pretty much is going to get you 8 to 10 times what you paid for, and I just don't think you can really guarantee that anywhere else on the slate. So it's almost like a free space. But he could be a decent leverage play as well. But yeah, Jalen Green here at $4,200, I think is my favorite. When you look at a guy that was the number 2 pick in the draft out of the G League, great summer league, as we talked about here on the slate, or on the sweat and on the slate. And really, when you talk about the defense that he's going to be facing, the Minnesota Timberwolves allowed the top 3-point percentage a year ago. Of course, there's roster turnover. That there's no guarantee it's going to happen again. But, a decent amount of that core is still there, and I don't think that their defense is just going to magically become the best in the NBA. So because of that, I think that Jalen Green here is probably going to be in line for a lot of minutes and a lot of shots. He's going to start. So I think that you might as well just fire him up here at $4,200. I think that's a pretty good cash game play.
Thank you, gentlemen. We got some DFS talk to get to here on the ice and still on the links right after this.
To our NHL panel, we're putting this show on ice. It's DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich, RotoWire's AJ Scholes, and Paul Bruno. They are here for NHL opening face-off.
Look at Bruno's headset.
Yeah, choosing between the top options in the NHL tonight. Only 2 games to choose from, okay, guys? So 2 players off to good starts on the season. Would you rather play Boston's Brad Marchand or Philly's Joel Farabee in DFS tonight? Who are you going to go with, Jeff?
I mean, I'm paying up for Marchand. I mean, the Farabee story is nice. I mean, he's got 2 goals on 3 shots on net.
Wow.
He's a good young player, but I mean, like Brad Marchand, you look at this slate. I mean, goals per game over the last 12 months, he's the leader. He's even outscoring David Pastrnak just from that perspective. Now, I think Pastrnak will probably even the things out here pretty quickly, but this Boston line, first line, it's a big spot. The Philadelphia Flyers, they're still the Flyers. They've got one of the worst goalie tandems in the league. They were second last in terms of penalty kill efficiency last year. They've already kind of sucked in that regard this year too. The one good offense they faced in Vancouver already kind of lit them up. This Boston first line should roll here tonight. If Farabee's nice, it's a 2-game slate, so you're not going to write him off. You can play these 2 together, but if I'm picking one team from this game, I mean, I'm just going to go with the chalk and ride the Boston first line.
All right, AJ, you want to go with the chalk here?
I'm just here to listen to Jeff trash the Flyers. Like, I could enjoy that all day, every day. Just keep rolling, Jeff. Look, I agree with Jeff. I think you could consider using both guys tonight. I don't see any reason not to based on their price tags. But, yeah, between the two, Marchand, even at 7,100, is the better option here. Look, he's on the Bruins' number one power play. Farabee's on the second unit. He's got 5 shots on goal, Marchand, that is. For Farabee, his individual Corsi 4 is just 5. So that speaks to what Jeff was saying about, like, he's capitalizing on limited opportunities. But I'd rather have the high volume guy in Marchand who's going to get pucks on net, and plenty of those are going to come with the man advantage as well.
Paul, 3 for 3 on Marchand. What do we think?
Absolutely. Marchand is a guy who's the best example that I can find of a player you hate as an opponent but love as a teammate. I go with him in this comparison because he still plays on what I expect to be as one of the top lines in the whole league, as well as the top power play unit. And he's also on the ice for late game and shorthanded stuff, so he gets his share of empty netters as well. I give Farabee credit, though, for cracking a Flyers top 6. He's now listed as second line left wing, and he's certainly off to a hot start, but will get less playing time than Marchand overall, as well as fewer high leverage minutes, as he's expected to play on the second power play unit, so that's another consideration. So 3 for 3 here.
All right, let's talk about the second game tonight. As Jeff mentioned, there's only 2 games on the slate. So the Blues, Jordan
I actually
Cairo.
mentioned it.
What's up?
I mentioned it.
Did you mention it? Well,
Yeah.
I thought Jeff mentioned it too.
I think it was.
It was a backup mention just in case people like yourself
So we've
missed
had-
it, Emerson, which clearly is what
Okay,
happened.
so listen,
I'm just
we've
saying-
had multiple mentions on this segment that tonight's slate is
We
only
can
a 2-game
confirm
slate.
it's a 2-game slate.
Thank you very much. So the Blues' Jordan Cairo has been on fire to start the season with 2 goals and 6 points. That's in just 2 games, Jesse. I don't
Wow.
know if you've mentioned that.
Wow.
yet. Meanwhile, Vegas will need a little more from Jonathan Marchand with Max Pacioretty out of this lineup. Who is the better DFS play this evening, AJ?
Well, in a 2-game slate like this, I think you have to consider using Cairo as the hot hand here, but ultimately I would lean towards Marchand. He's coming in at just $4,500, which for a first line top power play guy like under 5K, that's almost too good to pass up. I know the production on the ice isn't there, at least at the same level, but I do like Marchand's matchup a little bit better going against Binnington, while Cairo is probably going to face Robin Leonard tonight. So I do think, again, this might be a spot where you could try and use both. But between the two, I like Marchand a little bit better here.
Okay, Paul, not a whole lot of options here on just a 2-game slate.
This is not going to be unanimous, so we'll divvy it up a little bit. Again, I give Cairo credit for bursting out of the gate with his impressive totals through the 2 games. And there's 2 games tonight, too, right? He's
Yeah.
still listed on that second line and second power play unit. A lot of 2s in today's show. When I focus on Marchand, I see another veteran who has is a top 6 guy and has been since joining the Knights as an established team leader now. Further to that, the Vegas roster is decimated to the point that they will be missing their top 2 offensive pieces in Pacioretty and Stone, among a host of other regulars. Marchand will play top line minutes here as well as the number 1 power play, but it's the fact that the Blues can focus on their defensive attention on limited offensive catalysts in Vegas lineup that include Marchand that causes me to lean in favor of Cairo in this matchup. St. Louis is a much healthier lineup with lots of experience, and they will be expected to put a clamp on the Vegas offense. So I go with Cairo in this spot.
Okay, Jeff, what do you think, dude?
Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking 2-game slate dynamics here. I mean, Jonathan Marchand at 4,500. I mean, even if Pacioretty and Stone were in the lineup, this is too cheap for him. I mean, he's a pretty elite shot producer. You look at this slate, he's second at wing in terms of just like shots per game. I mean, this guy gets it done when the other guys are around. Now he's bumped up to a first line role. He's way too cheap, but he's also going to be heavily owned. I think Paul nailed this. If you're looking at playing this game or how this game could play out from a leverage perspective and big GPPs tonight, St. Louis has been the better team thus far. Their offense is rolling. They could just cruise here to like a 5-1 win. If that's the case, you should be thinking about using Cairo as the pivot option here, because all the goals will come for St. Louis. And if Vegas just gets like 1 or shut out or something, then Marchand, even if he gets some shots on goal, probably going to be a bust. So at the same time, if you're building a cash lineup, you should just play him. But Jonathan Marchand grades out as the better play. But again, we've got to think it's a 2-game slate. There's a lot more dynamics here.
All right, guys, let's move on over to the sportsbook side of things. 2-game slate.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's
it
4
certainly is.
teams. So there's just 4 teams in action tonight. So, Paul, who offers the best money line option of the 2-game slate?
I think I made my case for the Blues on the money line as the visitors tonight in Vegas because of all the injury woes that plague the home side at the moment. My pal AJ has taken a lot of heat for a hot take on Robin Lehner as well to start the season, but he has the guy's been not too good in his 2 starts this season, and that's another problem in the Vegas mix. An experienced St. Louis club has scored 12 goals in 2 games, and that's the last thing that Knights want to deal with at the moment. So I like the visitors on the money line at plus 110. And similarly, I like the Bruins' attention to defense that I've come to expect in recent years to be a factor again tonight, despite a number of changes to their roster. For instance, Jeremy Swayman is a young guy who's been a solid goalie option since joining the club last year, so he won't be an issue as long as the team in front of him continues to play with their usual focus. Meanwhile, the Flyers have overhauled their defense, and I'm not sure it's going to lead to better protection for a pair of suspect goalies in the mix too. Marty Jones will make his season debut. He's really struggled in his last 2 years in San Jose with the goals against north of 3 and a save percentage around 90%. That's not very good numbers. It's those numbers that will take a beating tonight, as I expect Boston to win and pay off at plus 180 on the puck line as the 1.5 goal favorite here.
All right, Jeff, 2 games tonight to choose from. Best money line option.
Yeah, I confirmed. I mean, I was looking for that 3rd game, Jesse,
Yeah.
but not there. I look, it's the Boston Bruins at minus 145 on the money line. I mean, what are we doing here? Again, it's the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, in what shape or form are the Flyers better than the Bruins in any phase of the game here? We've got Swayman playing at an elite level already through 1 game. You've got the Bees first line healthy. You've added Taylor Hall for a whole season. Everything here about the Bruins just speaks that this is like the more elite team. And I get it. Like these are rivals and sometimes these games get a little chippy and they can just be grinded out of fairs and close. But I think when you're getting these odds right now on the Boston Bruins early in the season, we're going to look back and say, you know, how is it this close? I'm going to take Boston here on the money line because, again, even at minus 145, I think you're getting really good value.
AJ, 2 games to choose from. What do we think?
Well, Jeff's absolutely right in terms of Boston on the money line, even giving up that juice. But I'll make an argument to take the Golden Knights here, just to contradict Paul. Of course, you're giving up a little bit of juice, but this was at minus 135, and now it sits at minus 125 on the DK Sportsbook. So it's improving in terms of how much juice you have to give up. The defense is one of the best in the league with top offensive options in Pietrangelo and Theodore. I think they can get better net minding out of Robin Lehner. They're going to get a handful of kind of depth guys back. I think that's going to help them. William Carrier, Nicholas Waugh, both those guys playing tonight. And so that'll bolster their depth, even though they will be without Pacioretty and Stone. I think they can pull this one off, and I'm willing to give up minus 125.
All right, awesome work, dudes. Appreciate you. Thanks for helping us out with this small slate this
2-game
evening.
slate.
Just 2 games. 1 less than 3, 1 more than 1. Okay, the PGA Tour event tonight. Yes, tonight. It's going to tee off in 8 hours. So we got to bring on right now Len Hochberg right after this break.
Welcome back to The Sweat. It is the final segment of the
Yes.
show, but it is one of the greatest. All right, we have our PGA
Oh, yeah.
guest here, RotoWire senior golf writer Len Hochberg, who is here for PGA Tour Price Check. So which golfers do you like at these price ranges for the Zozo Championship, which, as we know, teeing off?
Tonight.
Yeah.
Indeed. Good morning, Len. Great to see you. And that's 7:30 tonight, to be exact. We have just
Why
two-
is that? Because it's
That's because it's in Japan. It's halfway across the world. We have just two players over the $11,000 mark in this one, and that's Colin Morikawa, Xander Schauffele. You buying one of these top-priced options, or you want to spend your money elsewhere?
Well, Jesse, Emerson, good to see you. I feel similarly that this is the best segment on the show, but
Yes.
might be biased a little bit. Yeah, the golf is starting pretty quickly, so let's get to it. Yeah, Morikawa and Schauffele head this field, and only 78 guys, and I think these two will be very popular for the simple reason that there are not a lot of good golfers. There are some big names at the top, and then the field really falls off the cliff pretty fast. So we're going to have to choose between one of these two, or a lot of people will anyway. Morikawa finally found himself last week after a really poor stretch for him through the playoffs and a sort of a so-so Ryder Cup. He finished second last week. And I think this is a perfect course for him. It's not long. It's tree-lined. Narrow fairways, dog legs. I think you need to be accurate with your irons. I think this is a perfect setup for Colin Morikawa. Xander Schauffele, I suspect he will do well. I don't think he's been doing quite as well on the limited field, no-cut events. We know the narrative that he always does well in those. Well, he was just 18th last week, 39th at the WGC Workday, I think, back in the spring. I lean toward Morikawa this week.
Okay.
All right, Will Zalatoris actually missed the cut at his last event in the Shriners Open 2 weeks ago, but this week he's still your third highest priced golfer at $10,500. So where do you land on him this week?
Well, Will Zalatoris missing the cut, nothing to joke about, but yeah, that was a surprise for me. I expected him to do well. You know, he is 31st in the world, and he sort of stalled there. He was back in the hundreds and beyond, and then he made his way into the top 100. And then after finishing second in the Masters, he became 27th in the world. And he's sort of been stuck there. He's been good. He's had some bad weeks. I don't think this is a Will Zalatoris week. When Will Zalatoris has played well, it's been long courses where you can just really rip it off the tee, let fly. This is not that course. This is the complete opposite of that course. So even though he's one of the top guys in the field, I think this is a good guy to avoid.
What about value? We're always looking for value. People watching now, the potential millions around the world, need to hear from you.
Yeah, value. Well, value in this tournament is, I don't know if it's the right word. It's really tough. You know, there are, from the bottom of the field, there are about 20 golfers who I think really are hard to jump on board with this week, most of them. So that really limits us this week. That said, I mean, Alex Noren, $9,700. I like Alex Noren, but you really got to gulp to pull the trigger on Alex Noren at $9,700. That said, $8,800, CT Pan. I know it's a CT Pan chalk week. A lot of people are picking him to win. I'm not picking him to win. I think he's going to do okay and do well this week. Moving down, then $8,700. KH Lee playing very well lately. 5 top 25s in his last 8 starts, including the CJ Cup last week. Much tougher field. $7,500. Harry Higgs playing well. $6,800. Roger Sloan, the Canadian. Interestingly, he is only plus 6,500 at the DK Sportsbook. That does not jibe with a $6,800 DraftKings price, DFS price. I think a lot of people over at the Sportsbook like him, as do I. And dipping down into that bottom 20, a couple of Japanese tour players quickly. Scott Vincent, the Zimbabwean, at $6,400, been playing very well lately at 115th in the world right now. And Ryuka Hoshino from Japan, up to 105th in the world. He has had some time playing against the PGA Tour players, 26th at the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines in the spring, in the summer.
All right, real quick, who's someone you're absolutely fading this week, Glenn?
Yeah, I think, some guys like Will Zalatoris. I don't think this is a Will Zalatoris course. Tommy Fleetwood, $10,000, just has not been playing very well. Those are two guys I'm clearly going to stay away from this week.
I need one-word answer. Who's your winner?
Hideki Matsuyama, winning in his native Japan. He's played well there before. He can handle the pressure.
All right,
that's more than one word.
Book it.
More than one word.
It's okay. We get it.
Love you, Len.
All right, that's a show. Dolphins, Colts at noon. Madden starting. Make sure you tune in at 5 p.m. for the slate with Emerson, Reed, and Jeff talking more golf. So see you then at 5, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11.